Welcome back. This is episode number 347 of the Healthy Diabetic Podcast. Going solo today. Graham's not with me today. I actually have an incredible guest that I'm going to introduce here in just a second. But if you're brand new to the show and you don't know much about me and Graham, we are two type 1s who have almost 50 years of lived experience with diabetes. We talk about anything and everything diabetes on this show. And we hope to inspire you to think differently about how you manage your diabetes and how you're navigating this crazy, crazy condition. Before we get started, please remember that nothing that you hear on this podcast should be considered medical advice or otherwise. Please always consult your medical team before making any changes to your diabetes management. Okay, I just want to remind you that Graham and I are switching our live days. If you didn't know, we actually go live on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. We go live. And also you can jump into the Riverside link, which was where we record all of our episodes. So you can actually jump into our conversation live Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link for the show will be in the show notes. So if you're ever looking for the link, it's in the show notes. So without further ado, let's get with Lisa Katzenberger.
Hi, everybody. I am Lisa Katzenberger, and I am a mom to a type 1 diabetic. My son Ryan is 15 years old now, and he was diagnosed when he was 7 years old in the summer between first and second grade, which as I look back at that now, kind of thankfully, because we had summer to figure things out and we didn't have to get right into school.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm also the author of a picture book biography about Frederick Banting called It Belongs to the World.
Yeah. And I want to say, we're going to go into her being an author and stuff and writing these amazing children's books. But Lisa I had the pleasure of getting one of Lisa's books from her, and it was amazing. My girls were like, "What's this? What's this?" I'm like reading it to them, and they're like, "What's this? What's?"
That's awesome.
It was great. It's a great book. Yeah. Thank you so much for sending that to me.
Thank you. But talking about Ryan's diagnosis story, he was, let's see, we were living in a different house. He was 7 years old. And I remember the first sign was that he looked a little skinny. One time when I was still giving him baths at that time. And I was like, that's weird. And we thought maybe it was a growth spurt and he was kind of getting rid of his chubby baby 6-year-old body and getting slimmer and taller. Then he got the classic symptoms, going to the bathroom all the time. When we're at Target, Mom, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm like, all right, okay. You don't think anything of it. And then being thirsty so much, so thirsty. And I have this in the book in my author's note, but the key that turned it for us was he was at a Cub Scout events with his dad, and they were under a pavilion because it was raining and the event was over and they were eating cupcakes. What 7-year-old kid doesn't want a cupcake, right?
Yep.
Ryan said, Dad, I see the water fountain like over by the field house building. I am so thirsty. I need to go over there and get some water. I don't want to eat this cupcake. It was pouring rain and he still went and did it. And so Mike came home. That was on a Saturday. He told me that, no, excuse me, it was on a Sunday. He told me that. And then he Googled hungry, thirsty, skinny boy. And it came up with the word diabetes. And we just didn't really know anything. We took him to the doctor the next morning and told the symptoms. The nurse did a finger prick right away. And when the doctor walked in, he asked a few questions, but then they got the blood sugar number was 400 something. And he said, Ryan, this is serious. You have diabetes and you have to go to the emergency room right now. And I'm still getting like shaky thinking about it,
Yeah.
But he did great at the ER. They somehow got a insulin drip into him. And we were there for, I think, 2 nights to learn how to give injections, to understand about, carb counting was kind of all they gave us in terms of resources at that time. And we started doing shots. We got a Dexcom maybe 4 weeks later. And then They made us wait 6 months until we could get a pump, which I
That's
think is
crazy.
kind of crazy. And I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think they're making people wait that long, but
I've heard I mean, there's some that do. I think
Mhm.
it really is doctor specific,
Yeah.
and maybe it's policy hospital specific.
Hmm.
But I have talked to parents recently that were very recently diagnosed that say like, yeah, we have to wait 6 months to get on a pump and a CGM,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
so crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were doing shots, and he's 7 years old. He's hungry and he was still kind of doing the eating pattern of grazing. Like, I'm going to have a
Yeah.
little lunch. Then an hour later, I want some goldfish. And then 2 hours after that, I'm really hungry because I was running around and now I need an apple. And so you're trying to figure out this dosing on this medicine that to me was very, very scary. I was
Hmm.
very scared of it at the beginning because I thought I, the worst thoughts go into your head. You give too much insulin, he goes low. What happens? When
Well,
you don't give enough insulin,
yeah,
he
did
goes high. Yeah.
when you guys first started though, what did the doctors were the doctors saying? Like, I hate to say the word like scare tactic, because so many, like, I've heard that so many times with young people, even adults being diagnosed, that they are using these scare tactics of, well, if you don't take care of yourself, you're gonna lose a leg, like you could die, like all these
Right.
things. So it's like, if that's the communication pathway that's being given to you at diagnosis, even from a parent's perspective, I can't imagine the fear that in the buildup of that anxiety of that just
Mhm.
keeps building up, when you are trying to make those decisions either in the moment or hopefully before it like becomes an issue or something. So I think that is a really interesting thing to think about from the parent's perspective, because I only have the experience from everything's myself. I was 25. Like that a completely different situation than a parent of a 7-year-old boy, a boy, not a girl, a boy that's a crazy
Right.
person in the first place. That's what boys
Yes.
do. They're just crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it's so crazy to me. It's like the like parents that say that, like, oh, I was so nervous about doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, if you were constantly being told that, well, no wonder you had all that anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. I have had anxiety for a long time. So I'm an anxious person to begin with. And it was kind of in check. And then when Ryan was diagnosed, all those anxieties just came back out again.
Mm.
I went back to therapy and I learned how to manage my fears and work through my mental load and things like that. I remember I was in a session with a therapist and Mike was at home with Ryan. Everyone was fine. His alarms start going off because was going low. And my therapist was like, do you really need those on right now? And I was like, well, yeah. Like, what if they need me? And he was like, she was like, okay, how do you think your husband is handling it? I was like, oh, Mike is great. He's on top of it. He's always
Hmm.
been the like head
Yeah,
of
yeah.
diabetic lead in our partnership.
Okay, nice.
Right. Which is great. And so she was like, maybe when you're not with him, you can trust your husband and
Mm.
trust that you don't have to be on this 24/7. And it took a lot of work and probably a few years before I was able to not worry that he was going to die at
Yeah.
any given moment.
Hmm.
And now he's 15. He's completely independent. He rolls his eyes at me like any other teenage kid would. Mom, I know I have to change my pump. Mom, gosh, okay. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah. Roller coaster of trying to figure out what works, but then also the emotional roller coaster. And I think the emotional roller coaster, thank you for sharing that. Like, I think the emotion roller coaster is a thing that goes unreally connected with for some people, because we don't talk about that enough. We talk about like, oh, I had this problem with a dosing strategy, or I had this issue with this food, or I couldn't figure out this, or exercise is messing me up or whatever. But we don't really talk about the emotional toll from the diabetic's perspective and even the parents perspective. So that's perfect that you were saying that.
Yeah, thanks. And the other thing I'm remembering of those first few years is, all right, he's 7. He's trying to figure out what activities he likes.
Mhm.
He's joins Little League. He's does soccer and, swimming. He loves being in the water. He loves the pool. And all of those things were very scary for me when he was on the field and we're like, does he keep his phone on him? Because we do DIY looping, which was DIY back in the day. And so he needed to have his phone on him to connect with his CGM and pod and give us numbers. And we played with, do we let him out on the field for a 7-minute inning when he was
Yeah.
an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
so worried to not have that constant feedback of the
Mhm.
readings every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to let him try things and to kind of lengthen that connection and trust him, because the problem was never Ryan. It was me.
Yeah.
It was my worries. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Lisa, I think this is so interesting because I know so many parents have dealt with this.
Mhm.
I mean, parents, we as parents, we deal with this type of like these emotions as our kids grow up, not even throwing a crazy condition into the mix.
Right.
I'm very curious, like what has been maybe the biggest impactful thing that has helped you kind of take a breath and take a step back and not have so much worries about Ryan?
Honestly, for me, it took time.
Okay.
And beyond time, it took like proof. I
Yeah.
remember seeing another mom of a child about the same age who has type 1 diabetes and was listing some worries about, oh, they're on a field trip. What if they forget their diabetes kit, which is what we call the bag Ryan wears with his Baqsimi and supplies and all that stuff. What if they leave that on the field trip bus or something? And I was like, gosh, now I have to worry about that too.
Yeah.
But over time, I saw Ryan never forgets that bag. Like, I can remember like 2 specific times in 7 years where we're like, crap, we're at the grocery store and we left it. And we're just
Yeah.
4 minutes away. Nothing's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
going to happen in those 4 minutes.
And you're at a grocery store with food. You can grab food at
Exactly,
the
right?
grocery store. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
plenty of people around, all that sorts of stuff. So it really just took me looking at the data of his numbers and how much time he is in range. He's never had a severe low that we've had to go to the hospital for, anything like that. He's never been in DKA. One time he forgot his phone at home and I had to run it to school, once in 7 years. So it just took me believing with these examples that the worry wasn't doing any good. And I had to look at the proof.
Yeah. I love that because so many people think that like, oh, they should just be able to snap their fingers and then all of the worry's gone. Snap
No.
the fingers and then all of the anxiety's gone. Like, okay,
Right.
he's totally fine. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But like time really does. I mean, the thought process of like time really does heal all wounds. Like, I think that is
Yes.
100% true.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that is, for me, that's a really big important piece because even for me, not having to worry about someone else, but even the worry about myself when I was diagnosed and having no help whatsoever, having to figure everything out myself. I remember those feelings, even just for me. I can't imagine like you're having those feelings for your son,
Mhm.
and you're trying to navigate your emotions towards two different things. It's like, man, that's crazy.
It was wild. And, I try to be, there's a balance between wanting to be strong and calm for him.
Mhm.
In certain situations, there's definitely been times where I'm like, he can't see me break. I need to be calm. I need to get through this moment. And then I can go cry in the bathroom later, or I can talk to him about it later.
Yeah.
But I also want to be honest about mental health and emotions and all those kind of things and let him know I'm not, a superhero mom. Like, I have my worries, I make my mistakes. I'm human just like everybody else. And sometimes the emotions get the best of me, but that's okay. And I can talk about it with Mike, my husband. I can talk about it with Ryan and not feel like I have to bottle things up, which then just, gets you into crisis mode and doesn't feel real good.
Yeah. I'm curious too. Like, I actually have one question from the perspective of you and Mike versus you and Ryan.
Okay.
We'll go with you and Ryan first, since we're kind of already on this path of talking about him.
Okay.
What was like kind of the thing for the both of you that that you kind of implemented maybe early on or as you guys were going in the last 7 years that was like kind of the cornerstone of helping him be able to get to where he is now to being independent?
I'm thinking of a couple examples of rules, guidelines,
Mm,
expectations we've sent for him.
mm,
Loves swimming, and as we all know, swimming with type 1 diabetes and equipment in the water can be really tough. You don't have
yep.
those numbers. Is out in the sun, he's hot, he really reacts to the heat.
Yeah.
Just before he was diagnosed with diabetes. And we made a rule that he had to get out of the water every 30 minutes if we asked him to, and
Mm,
sit on the edge of the pool and hold his, his Dexcom up in the air. And we could get a signal to check how his
mm,
number was, and then he could go back in.
mm,
And he always did it. We got some resistance here and there, but most of the time he would do those things and he would prove to me that I can trust him.
yeah.
We also have a rule that if we're not together and we call him, he has to pick up the phone.
Mm,
We will text when it's, hey, you should get some carbs in a little bit. We're not, but if there's times we really need to get a hold of him, we will call and he's expected to pick up the phone and he does.
mm,
So those incidences of Ryan really being strong and independent and responsible and knowing that he's taking care of himself and he's respecting our rules and our expectations for how he manages himself has allowed again time to give him more and more rope, so to speak, to allow him to become more independent.
mm.
So it was definitely setting expectations between us.
Yeah, I love that. The expectation piece, I think, is something that people forget about. It's
Mhm,
like, again, I think some parents think like, okay, well, I'm putting together these foundations of how I want to manage his blood sugar
mhm,
or her blood sugar, and that's going to be how it evolves and how this person's taking it over later on.
mhm.
I love what you're talking about because it's not just coming from you as the person that is trying to understand how to build a foundation that works for him at a young age and then as he gets to being a teenager, but also putting that very important thing in front of him too and making sure that he's understanding here's the expectations. You're coming up with those solutions or those expectations together instead of you just saying you have to do this.
Right,
and
exactly.
and I think that that's really powerful because it puts not just the power in your hand, but also the power in his hand, where he
Yeah.
feels like he has some control over what's going on instead of just being, well, my mom and dad tell me I have to do this, so I got to do it.
Right. And we started seeing times as he got older where maybe we'd send a text or I'd call him, if we're at home together and say, "Hey bud, I think you need some carbs." And he'll be like, "No, you know what? I feel okay. I had that snack an hour ago and I'm trending up, and so let's wait a couple minutes before we do anything." And so he started to be able to understand his body. When he was first diagnosed, he was hypo unaware. He did not feel his lows at all. And that also was a scary factor for me. And that came over time as he grew up. So I had to, again, trust him that he knew what he was doing. And I think that was his way of saying, you were talking about power, of him saying, I am in control of my body
Mhm.
as much as I can be. And I know what I feel, and I'm going to communicate that to you and hope that you trust me back. So there's a lot of trust in our relationships together that I think is real important.
That's amazing. The trust thing is so important in that relationship. I mean, we all know that trust is so important in any type of relationship.
Right.
But, I have seen unfortunately where the trust doesn't develop in the right ways maybe between parent and type 1 and it becomes a struggle back and forth and I think that that's really amazing that you guys have built that trust.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very lucky. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a good
That's
kid.
awesome. Okay, let's transition. I'm very curious because I think this is an important piece for parents
Hmm.
in terms of dad, mother, spouses
Hmm.
taking this on together.
Yeah.
what I always say is typically from what I have seen, there's one person that's the primary decision maker, the primary person that's building the foundations, and then the other person is the secondary person. Like if they're with them, they can take care of things, or like I'm very curious how you and Mike have evolved that relationship with him and over time.
Yeah, yeah. So from the beginning, Mike jumped in and took the lead in terms of diabetes management because I think he saw how scared I was.
Mm.
And we have very different personalities that I think work well together. He is the strong, stable, patient person, and I'm the emotional, up and down kind of roller coaster lady. And he saw that I was struggling and he stepped in and he, did the first rounds of shots. He did the first Dexcom application. And I remember the first time I put a Dexcom on Ryan, like by myself while Mike was at work. Like, now you throw it on, boop, you're done, right? And I like wrote down the steps and I watched the YouTube video and I checked each step off. But I didn't know. Like, I just
Lisa, I
wanted to
love
be
it.
so careful.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And so Mike is also very data analytic, and that goes into
Mm.
his background and his job. So he was very interested in
Mm.
the numbers we see on our TypeHold app, on what's in range, when he's trending. And so he was able to take his brain strength and in that area and analyze the numbers and think about, do we need to switch our insulin to carb ratios? Do we need to switch our basal and let us manage it more on our own than feeling like we always have to check in with the endo. And, I think the thing that I can provide, being the more emotional, touchy feely, is,
Mhm.
when Ryan is low and he doesn't do it anymore, but if he wants to snuggle on my lap because he feels like crap
Yeah.
for 10 minutes, fine, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'll stop whatever I'm doing and
Mhm.
let him have that comfort. So we took, I think, the strengths of each of us and put it together. There are definitely times of stress and we weren't on the same page and things
Mhm.
like that. But overall, we just talk about it all the time too,
Yeah.
all the time. Much
Yeah.
less now than when he was obviously first diagnosed. But I was doing a survey for parents of teenagers with type 1 diabetes, and it had those like, how often do you talk about diabetes in one day? Like sometimes, always, never, whatever. And I'm like, every day, a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, for good or bad, but it's a central part of our life.
Yeah. And I think the important for me, the important piece with that thought process of like, you talk about it a lot, sometimes never. For the people that talk about it a lot, I think that's amazing. My only rule of thumb for that is that if you talk about it a lot, it can't affect your mental health. It
Yeah,
can't give you all this anxiety. It
yeah,
can't like keep you from making real-time decisions because you have this like fear or anxiety about it. But like I think that's amazing that people talk about it all the time. Like that's incredible because some people need that. And that's great that you guys were able to have that balance.
yeah, yeah. It certainly wasn't a balance at the beginning, and it wasn't easy at the beginning. And definitely there were, periods of time where I felt diabetes was all consuming.
Mhm.
And it was all I was worried about when he was at school, for those first times when he went and started second grade. But over time, it becomes a natural part of your life and your just kind of natural day to day.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
You just mentioned school. I'm curious with 504 plans of your guys' school plans. How has that evolved over time?
Oh, that's a great question. So when Ryan went back to school in second grade, they had to hire a nurse at the school because they did not have a full-time nurse. They had a nurse that was shared among the district.
Yeah.
And then she was there for a couple years. And then the pandemic happened when he was in end of third grade. Fourth grade was all e-learning. And then fifth grade, he was more independent, and we transferred to Mrs. C, the school nurse, who became a very, very important part of our lives. And she was the one who would remind Ryan when he had to bolus for lunch if he didn't do it, you need a correction. She managed him at school. And it gave me, and I think that was a big change for me after COVID. He was getting back into a routine, and just knowing that from 8 to 3, I didn't have to worry.
Mhm.
Like, someone else had his back. Not that I wasn't paying attention. Of course I was. I was still
Yeah.
following him. And Mike and I would, jump in if we needed to. But I felt like he was in such a safe place that it allowed me to bring more space into my life and into my brain for other things. And so he was with Mrs. C through 8th grade. And he just started his freshman year of high school, and they do not follow diabetics there.
Hmm.
And when I first heard this, and when Ryan was in 6th grade, I was like, well, that's ridiculous. There's no way Ryan's going to be independent on his own. I'm
Yeah.
writing a letter. I'm demanding something. I'm going to show them that 504, right?
Yeah.
And high school comes around, and he's perfectly independent. I would say was one time where Mike and I were texting him that he needed to have some carbs. He was going low. I think it was after gym, and he wasn't responding. And so we called the health office, and they're like, all right, we'll send student associate to his classroom and make sure he has something to eat. And he was, I think, a little embarrassed, and it never happened again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He made sure that didn't happen. He made sure that didn't happen again. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe that was just something that had to happen, so he wouldn't
Right.
go low
For
like
him
that.
to know. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into driver's ed
Mm.
and learning to manage his blood sugar when he's behind the wheel and things like that. So the level of independence just continues to grow and grow. But we have been very, very lucky to have great support from healthcare providers at our schools.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
is really cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious, over the years that you guys have added or adjusted the 504 for him, has there been anything that has there been anything that you guys have put into that plan that has kind of stands out, like, oh my gosh, this really helped him in this time frame of his life, that you could share to the other parents that might be trying to navigate the 504 stuff, because a lot of parents don't even know that it's available.
Mhm.
And two, understand what you're allowed to put in there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the biggest thing that we changed over time was the ranges he could be in to be active in PE.
Got
Because
it.
if he was, over 250, they would make him sit out. And he was like, that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to sit against the wall when my blood sugar is high. I want to be running. I want to be playing
Yep.
basketball. I want to be getting this energy out. And so that was one thing we did, that we modified, that not the number, but that it was at his discretion. And
I like that.
that they trusted him, that he
That's
knew
smart.
when he could move and when he did need to sit down.
Yeah, I
So that
really
was a
like
big
that.
thing.
Sorry, I don't want to meet. I apologize for interrupting you, but this is really important for people to understand the difference, because when you first started talking about that, you were talking about a specific number, right? Over 250 or 250 or above. And I think the important piece to this is the fact that it wasn't about the number, it was about his discretion. So now he understands and learns over time, like, okay, this is what my body feels like. This is what I can take. This is what I can endure. This is what I can take, and starts understanding the whole process of exercise is going to bring me back down. All of these things where someone else might say, okay, well, if he's at 250, he needs to make sure he's exercising, or if he's at this, and make it about the number, but it's not about the number. It's about the feeling and the ability for that person to be able to take action and understand, okay, I actually need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, exactly. It gave him autonomy, and it
Yeah.
gave him probably trust in himself.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing we've seen in the 504 plan. We actually have his 504 meeting next week, and I'm just like, oh, right. Yeah, that'll take 10 minutes, and I'm going to go on with my day.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Because I mean, done it so many times. You're probably not making that many adjustments. Like,
No, we got the new papers from the endo and sent them over, and we'll sign some paperwork and be on our way. It'll be super easy, I think.
have you ever found, this is an interesting question that just popped in my head. Have you ever found with the 504 something that was like kind of not in alignment, something that like happened either because something wasn't in the 504 or something was in the 504 and that kind of held him back from something, or has there
Yeah.
been any situations like that?
Yeah, one time, and I forget what his number was, and I think he was in probably fourth or fifth grade, and he was a little low, and he must have treated himself, or the nurse wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
but he was in music class, and they were playing percussion, and the teacher had told him he needed to sit out and not bang on the drums because
Mm-hmm.
they probably didn't know. I don't know how the teacher saw Ryan's number, but he knew it was in the plan, and the guy was probably doing the best he could. But Ryan
Mm-hmm.
came home and he was really angry.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like being singled out. He didn't like being told that he can't do something when he knew that he could, and he knew he was safe and he was
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. So I think, education of what type 1 diabetes is and what it does to your body, and having respect for the person who has it, is a lot of good awareness we can continue to work on.
Yeah. Is there anybody in his school now? I mean, high school. Yeah, because he's in high school now. Is there other people in his school that are type 1, or is he the only type 1 in his school?
We have no idea.
That's an
So number
interesting thing. It's
Yeah.
always an interesting question when I ask people that, because it's like, oh, this school, like my wife is a nurse in the school district that our girls would go to school at if we weren't homeschooling them. And there's some schools that there's like 5 or 6, and there's some schools that there's 1, there's some schools there's 2, there's another school that there's 3. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't ask, but number one, they couldn't tell us who the student was if there was someone. And number two, Ryan doesn't care. I always try to like foster these relationships. Do you want to meet other kids with type 1 diabetes? Like, not really. He's enjoyed type 1 diabetes camps when he was able to be a counselor,
I was
not
gonna
as
ask
a
that. Yeah.
kid. But when he was able to like help others and not feel like he was being, I don't know, made to be special in a different way, he just was like, I don't need to see another kid with an Omnipod, Mom. It's not going to really do anything for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that from that. I mean, for
Yeah,
sure, I can understand that from I was
yeah,
wondering about camp.
yeah,
If he enjoyed that, or if he was part of it, and like that's cool.
yeah,
I wish that I would have got involved when I was first diagnosed. Even being an adult, going
yeah,
in and being a counselor right away, and like even learning from other people. Yeah, I
yeah.
wish I would have had that outlet.
Yeah, we did one camp the summer he was diagnosed. He had his Dexcom, but they wouldn't let him use it because they wanted the kids to be independent. He was still on shots. It was 1 week day camp, like 9 to 3, and he went with his sister, his twin sister Sydney, and he did not have a great time. He didn't like the rules. He didn't like how often he had to be checked. And as he's gotten older, I'm like, do you want to try it now, bud? And he's like, no, thank you,
Yeah,
not interested. But
yeah,
now he loves coming in as a counselor. There's something
yeah,
about that is a different perspective for him.
yeah.
So that he has been enjoying.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, those camps need people to be
Do
mentors.
everyone volunteer for your
Mentors.
camp?
Yes, everybody volunteer for your camp 100%. I'm waiting for the call from ours to like, okay, what position am I getting?
Right, yeah.
Where am I going to be this summer?
Right, exactly.
That's cool. Okay, let's transition to the books. I'm really interested in I got a little bit of the background when we kind of chatted for a second at Breakthrough
Mhm,
at the summit. But I'd love just for you to give the highlights or cliff notes of like how this got started, why you
mhm.
started doing it. And is the Banting book, is that the only diabetes book? You have other ones too.
Okay, so It Belongs to the World Frederick Banting and the Discovery of Insulin is the only book that I have written about diabetes. It's
Gotcha.
the only nonfiction book I've written. I don't know that I would write one ever again because it was really hard. There was a
Really?
lot of research that went into it, but it was a subject that I was so passionate about, so
Yeah.
interested about. So I do have other picture books for children. My first one came out in 2021. I have a few others, but I wanted to challenge myself to write a picture book biography and learn how to write nonfiction.
Mm,
Excuse me. And I was like, what is part of my life that I would read about oodles and oodles books about and write
mhm,
about and revise and revise and revise. And I was like, oh, type 1 diabetes. So
mm,
I had learned about Frederick Banting, who discovered insulin with his team. And I started hearing more and more about him just through the community and networking and things like that. And I found his life fascinating, especially the fact that the patent for insulin was sold for $1.
mm,
And when he said, insulin does not belong to me, it belongs to the world. And now I'm going to cry. Now there are people who are struggling to get insulin. And that wasn't the intention. That wasn't Frederick's intention at all. And it's a medicine that people, it's a part of the body that is not functioning that
mhm,
people need to survive. And it's just disheartening to me what's been happening in the industry with that. So I wanted to find a hopeful note in the story and share it with kids who have type 1 diabetes, kids who have parents or siblings with type 1, and also kids who don't know the first thing about type 1 diabetes to understand
mhm.
the history and the perspective of
Yeah, it is. It's a very fascinating book because if you like, for me, I understand, I know the backstory
it.
of him,
Mhm.
but it's also really interesting and cool to see it from written from a children's perspective or child's perspective as well, which I thought was very, very cool and interesting because I've always only read the information from, articles or Instagram
Mhm.
posts or whatever it is. That big, like, what was a couple, what, last year or something like that, they came out with that big commercial type thing with the whole story.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was really cool to read it from the children's perspective.
Yeah. Thank you. And if you can, learning how to describe diabetes and insulin for a 5-year-old that was a challenge.
Mm,
It was definitely a challenge, but I read a lot of books. I did a lot of research. I consulted people, and hopefully it's a story where people can read to their kids or have their kids read and just understand a little bit more about the background about Frederick and just how selfless he was, that he did this in service to others. He wasn't out to make money. He wasn't out to get a big name for himself. He just wanted to care for other people.
yeah, which is also very prevalent when you understand the backstory of him, where he was in the military as a
Yes.
doctor as well. So
Yes.
it's like, you know, it's man, they don't make them like they used.
No, they
They don't make them like they man. And then now we've got the whole Islet Act going on and all the stuff with
mhm,
that, and like it's man, it's so crazy to me because with the Eldon trial or the Vertex trial, with all of these different trials that are going on, it's
yeah,
like finally, I feel like finally there's a very dim light at the end of the tunnel to a type 1
yes,
cure.
yes,
And I just hope that we don't have to continuously mull through these like policies that shouldn't even be policies and all these things that just like are going to be roadblocks.
exactly.
I really hope that we can get past these roadblocks and
Mhm,
in very fast fashion because I really do think from what I have seen and read about these trials, there's some real potential behind this stuff.
yeah, I totally agree. I think, and when Ryan was first diagnosed, you hear people say, "Oh, there'll be a cure in 10 years," and
Yeah.
7, 8 years have gone by, nothing. But I now feel more hope, and I feel like maybe in his lifetime, he won't be dependent on insulin. There will be there
something.
will be a cure. I really believe that in his lifetime, we're
Yeah.
lining the things up that would make that possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like with the way things are moving in that space too right now, if we don't have to get past all these barriers, it doesn't take time to get past all these barriers, I think it really could happen within the next 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years. Like, no problem.
So
No
awesome.
problem. At least having something that's available for the public and the people that wanna do it.
Yes,
So
and not
yeah.
yeah, not tied to people's insurance or their economic status or anything like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be
That's the
the
dream.
huge barrier.
Yeah,
That's gonna be the big barrier that we're gonna have to try to find a way to get through,
for
is
sure.
that
Yeah.
piece. Cool. What is like, what's 1 to 3 impactful things or one big impactful thing that you've kind of learned from diabetes?
Not One thing I learned from diabetes is not to let fear lead me and to accept that I have fear and acknowledge that I have fear and talk about that I have fear, but to not let it hold me back and to not let it be the driver in my
Mhm,
life. And it has taught me that, young kids, man, don't underestimate them. They can do so much. I mean, Ryan was old enough at 7 to understand what was going on, but if you asked him if he remembered life before diabetes, I don't know what he would say. I
yeah.
don't, you know, I don't know what his memory of that time was like. So they're resilient and they can do great things. And I think diabetes has also taught me how to persevere. Um, And when you have something like I always say, perseverance is very important in the life of an author. There's a lot of rejection and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm,
right? For your job. But when you have to persevere against something that is not going to change, that you have no control over, that man, that takes some real, real strength. And so
mhm.
I have so much respect for everyone in the type 1 community and what we're doing and hopefully can continue to support and lift each other up.
I love that. That's beautiful. Is there like 1 to maybe 3 things that you could tell, maybe that parent, mom, dad, that is maybe dealing with that fear and having challenges with navigating that fear? Something that maybe that helped you navigate all of that stuff?
Mhm.
I think that would be very, very powerful and helpful for that parent that is kinda struggling and having
Yeah.
challenges navigating those
Uh, One thing a therapist talked to me about when I was working through my fears of Ryan's diabetes and him going low all the time and
Mhm.
passing out in a pool or something like that, which has never happened,
Yeah.
was they told me to read up on statistics and to look at the
Mm.
information.
Hmm.
And I did at the time. I couldn't quote anything right now, but the majority of type 1 diabetics are healthy, leading great, successful lives like you, just going about their daily life. And the fear that was put into me just doesn't need to be there. And if you need proof, look at the data, like do some research and find out how successful and thriving the community is.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I will say, and I had mentioned this in our breakthrough T1D summit, was the Dexcom alarm settings are your friends. Learn to what you really need to be dialed into and what you don't. Like
Yes.
my alarms were going off all the time. We had it so that we would get a phone call overnight if he went low. I mean, he was
Oh
right
my
across the
gosh.
hallway. We could hear our phones. We could hear his phone. Like we were over the top.
Oh, man.
So just really, really think about what you need for safety and monitoring things and what you don't need and how you don't need to know that number every 5 minutes
Mhm.
because most of the time the kids are just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, the I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, both from the coaching aspect on the show, just out in the community, that just deal with that anxiety of constantly being attached to those numbers And it's a hard, challenging thing when when you think and you believe in your heart that you have to be always watching that. I'm working with a young kid right now who's always on it, and we had to put boundaries on
Okay.
like the times that you're not allowed to look at this thing.
Okay.
And we set boundaries of like, here's the times that I want you to actually look at it. If you have feelings and symptoms, then you absolutely look at it. But
Hmm.
everything else, you're not allowed to look at it. And now he's
That's
finally
great.
feeling the anxiety fall and not be so conscious about having to always look at it. And I
That's
think that
amazing.
I just think that being able to whatever that piece is for you as the person, if you're having those emotions, you know, you went to therapy, you did like these all these other had all these other strategies, is amazing. So you have to be able to put those boundaries in play in some fashion because it like you said, it's like it's so hard not just living with diabetes, but also being a parent
Hmm.
of a child. Like you have so many hats that you're trying to wear.
Yes.
Now you have to deal with all the emotions that go along with this
Mhm.
condition. Like, my goodness.
And be a medical provider suddenly,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So don't let those numbers overwhelm you and take up.
yeah, 100%. I love that. Lisa, this has been freaking fantastic. It was
Thank you.
such a pleasure having you on. I'm so glad that we got to connect at the T1D Summit.
Yeah.
Or the Breakthrough T1D Summit. It was fantastic to be on the panel with you, hearing
Yes.
your story and your answers, and like it was amazing. So thank you so much for that. Everybody, I will make sure that the link to Lisa's book is going to be in the show notes. So you
Great.
can, all you have to do is click a button and you can grab that book. It is freaking fantastic. Even if you just read it once, it's a really awesome read from not just the child's perspective, but even when I was reading, I was like, man, this is awesome. I didn't even know some of this stuff. Like it was such a fun read. So we will definitely have the link to the book in the show notes. And then I will also have Lisa's social media handles, all her things that you can connect with her. If you're a parent and you're dealing with, you know, struggling with emotions, she's been through it. It's a perfect resource for you. So
Yeah.
please
Reach
reach
out.
out to her and connect with her. We all need those people that we can lean on and ask questions to, people that have gone through the things that we've gone through. So, Lisa, thank you so much for doing this. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you guys next time.